Hello, welcome to the Wildline Podcast. I'm your host, Dan. I have Chris with me again. Say hello, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me as always, Dan.
So we are back with a special, our fourth special quarantine episode here. We're going to keep mixing it up.
Indefinite for now.
We're going to keep mixing it up. The format's going to go all over the place, and I think that's what we need to do. So today we're going to do kind of the typical. Chris is going to walk us through some of the stuff that's changed in terms of movie release times and stuff like that. We'll talk a little bit about VOD, premium VOD, and how that's changing the industry. We will dive into Deadline's top most profitable movies of 2019 countdown that they just started, I think, last week. So we'll walk through what they've done so far, and then we'll hop into the time machine and head back to 2017 and 2013 this weekend back then. But let's kick it off, Chris. What's changing out there at the multiplex?
Yeah. I think most of these were announced last weekend, but we just didn't have enough time to go through all of them. But I think it bears repeating if you're following the news or if you haven't heard some of the biggest changes in release dates that we have yet to discuss in the podcast. Anyway, I got 5 for you,
Nice.
So we'll count them down. Probably my fifth most interesting change is the Shang-Chi Marvel movie, which was this is kind of a big deal because they're already thinking about 2021 and starting to change release dates. And so it was originally supposed to come out in February, kind of be like, an little bit off-kilter, standalone, like Captain Marvel gamble with like an pretty unknown character, but giving him his first shot, and it's the first Asian American in the lead role of a superhero movie, and it's moved to May of 2021 as of now. So that's weird that they are. They obviously got to shuffle everything up, but it is kind of strange to put such a small Marvel kind of introductory origin story movie in May, which is where you'd think they'd put something a lot bigger.
May is definitely tentpole season, so
right.
It's kind of a little bit odd, but the schedule's just gonna be so jumbled. I'm not sure how they're gonna handle any of it, to be honest with you.
Yep. Number 4, sticking with the Marvel theme, and then we'll get away from it. But the other kind of big gamble for the MCU is the movie Eternals, which was originally going to come out in November, but that's going to now come out in February. And I think that's probably a safer bet. I think it would have gotten lost in the morass if it stayed in November, even without all of the release date changes. So I think February makes a lot more sense for that one. It just seems strange to now have kind of 2 big Marvel movies in a row that are based off pretty minor in the scheme of things, books from quite a while ago.
But they can print money, though. Let's be honest. Like anything that they like, I feel like they can put out anything at this point, and it's gonna like open to like $100 million. I think Captain Marvel sort of like proved that it doesn't have to have like a huge sort of backing or IP or cinema. They know what they're doing to the point where it's like it's a factory. So I've got faith, but it's gonna be weird. We'll see how it plays out.
For sure. Number 3 is not MCU related, but does have Tom Holland in it. The adaptation of the video game Uncharted has moved from March to October of 2021.
That movie, I feel like that movie's been trying to be made for at least like 8 years, or ever since the first game came out.
And I read that everybody was waiting for it to actually start production, and it finally started production. And then 1 week into filming, they had to halt everything due to coronavirus outbreak.
And who's the lead in this?
Tom Holland from Spider-Man.
That's like not a right fit at all.
No, it's not.
I
never played the game, but it definitely played like an older, more mature protagonist, right?
Yeah, like a grizzled sort of noir-y Indiana Jones type. So
yeah,
he does not come across that way at all, in the least.
He's going to be wide-eyed and stumbly and trying to make it cute, and it's going to be horrible.
It's going to be awful.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, the sequel to the classic 90s. Actually, no, this is 80s, right? Top Gun?
Yeah, 80s.
Yeah. What the heck am I thinking? The new Top Gun, which I totally forget now what the subtitle is.
Maverick, isn't it?
Yeah, Top Gun Maverick.
I think.
Has moved from June to December 23rd. So now it's a Christmas movie.
I think that works. That'll work. I think it's just like it's a dad movie.
Yeah, dads are gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll go see that one. That'll get me out of the chair.
It's gonna be huge. I mean, and so what's the date on that one? What
December 23rd. It was formerly June 24, so it was gonna be a big summer movie.
Yeah, I think that'll.
But I think
that'll
this
play.
makes more
That'll
sense.
Win. Yeah, I think it's gonna make a ton of cash. It's gonna make like $400 million domestic.
Yes. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, crazy.
we're just. I think all reference points are out the window now.
It's all gone. It's all gone.
And last but not least, movie that I don't think I was looking forward to, but probably the one out of the 5 that I was probably most guaranteed to see in the theaters, is Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I don't know if we've talked about yet on the show.
Not really. I don't think I've really hardly even mentioned it.
Yeah, so the Jason Reitman attempt at salvaging the Ghostbusters universe was originally supposed to come out in July, and it's now coming out in March of 2021.
March is like, I guess, a blockbuster month now. I mean, I'm assuming by at that time, people will be going back to theaters. Who knows anymore at this point?
Right.
Yeah, I think that'll work. Why wouldn't you just put it on October or something? You know, like,
I don't know.
Come on.
It's in the can is the weird part. So it's like literally going to be on the shelf for an entire year.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, and like all those reference points, especially with the comedy parts of it, it has to be like it's so about when it comes out, the moment, because if it's 6 months later, the comedy could be like stale.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where you got to sort of watch that. But I mean, it's also Ghostbusters, so everybody's going to show up. I might actually see this in the theater.
You really think it's still gonna pull people after the bad taste that the last one put in everybody's mouth?
That's such a minefield.
I don't want to get into it necessarily. But.
Yeah, no, but I think people view the last one as an aberration. And like they're just sort of like, whatever, that happened. This is the real one. I think that's like the mentality that I've heard from people online. Like, oh, this is the real new Ghostbusters. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
People, nerds.
True. I also wanted to mention real quick that we were discussing the Lovebirds last week, and it wasn't sure where that was going to wind up, but that it was probably going to go to a streamer.
Yeah.
And Netflix officially has picked it up. They haven't chosen a release date, but the kind of mid-tier romantic comedy starring Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae is now going to be a Netflix movie, probably coming out sometime this summer, if not sooner.
Yeah, I mentioned this summer. And then also, I was just reading this today. My Spy, the movie that was shuffled like 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
over,
I haven't heard about that.
Got bought by Amazon Studios to stream.
Yep.
So that one's going to premiere on streaming as well. So, and that kind of leads us into sort of the next topic, and that's sort of the premium VOD space. And so I think, what was it? Is it this weekend that Trolls came out? Trolls World Tour?
Yep. Which is it reminds me of trying to say rural juror, that joke from 30 Rock. It's just it does not roll off the tongue well. Trolls World Tour.
That's so stupid. What an awful name.
But yeah, this was the weekend. I mean, there were some ridiculous clickbait titles in the movie world about people talking about the most important release of 2020 is Trolls World Tour. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's I guess the weirdest part about it is like unlike a lot of the other VOD releases lately, like Bloodshot and The Hunt and Invisible Man and all that. This one you can purchase for $19.99, just like those others, but it's only for 48 hours. So it's the biggest price for a rental ever, but I think they're banking on it pretty much solely because, unlike those other films, it's a children's movie. And so they're probably hoping that some like desperate parents, like yours truly, are going to not just rent it once, but perhaps multiple times, especially if they market it right. And like they have been, because, my kids watch, various other streaming services, and they're putting the Trolls World Tour ads right in the right spots. And I think as much as it pains me to say it,
pull the trigger. Oh no!
I think we're gonna do it as well, especially because it's my oldest son's birthday next weekend, and
you gotta treat him.
You gotta, because it's and they're going off the logic, which makes sense if you break it down, considering the extenuating circumstances that if we were gonna go see Trolls World Tour for his birthday in a normal movie going landscape, like
Yeah.
it would cost us like $50 to all go out.
Easily
So
50.
what's
yeah.
$20, and then we save gas money too, and make our own snacks at home, and it's like I think
man.
this might be where we're going if we end up staying in our houses until November. Could definitely see if this works, more studios doing it, especially for children's movies.
Yeah, it's funny that like so premium VOD has this super long history that I won't necessarily dive into, but like it was, I would say, as of like 3 to 4 years ago, they were like good to go. Like, we're gonna do this, movies are gonna come out 2 weeks, 3 weeks after they're in theaters, like a month. But the pricing is what got the exhibitors, the movie theater owners, and the studios they could never agree on a price. They were talking like $50. This is as of like 2017. So essentially, what's happened, the quarantine has forced the industry to say, hey, we have these movies, we need to release them. This is the only way we can really do it. So it's definitely obviously forced their hand pretty dramatically. $19.99 for that movie to rent it, that's a lot of money. But like you said, financially, it makes total sense. But at the same time, it's like, isn't there other stuff you can watch on Netflix for free? I mean, not free, but like isn't there other stuff out there? Disney Plus. There's a lot of competition in that space, and to me, in my gut, this feels all very temporary. That like they're doing it now because of the quarantine. When we get out of the quarantine in a couple of months, I feel like they're gonna quickly slip back into the 90-day windows. That's just my read on it. I can't. Movie theaters, speaking of movie theaters, AMC is going to file for bankruptcy. The biggest movie theater company in, I guess, the United States, it is done. Not done in the sense like they're going to file for Chapter 11 and to continue to run operations, but they're not going to be, a company that's sort of liquid or viable. And so it is, so much dramatic change is happening, but that's why we see this sort of experimentation. And it's fascinating. I mean, where do you think it's going to go? Do you really think that this is going to be? Are we going to see this a year from now?
I think it totally depends on how long the current situation lasts. Yeah. Because if Mulan does actually come out in late July and things start slowly but surely getting back to normal, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to shift back to the pretty solid 90-day window pretty easily. Because like a few months, it seems like most, especially like big names like AMC, will survive their Chapter 11 bankruptcy and start building back up their reputation. But if this, I don't know if we get a second wave of outbreaks, if we have some states like my own, Minnesota, we're not scheduled to have our peak until July. And so that would, push things way out for us because we've done arguably better than other states at pushing out that peak. And we could see ourselves not really going to do things until November. And like the longer this gets pushed out, then the longer it's going to take for people to get back to normal, so to speak.
Yeah.
So like if we're not going out until November nationwide, I don't know. I think the rules might become more fluid than it's just like that whole idea, like the elastic band, right? The more you stretch it, the harder it's going to come back. But I don't think it's going to come back to normal. It's gonna snap and things are going to be weird.
I think what eventually, if that does happen, if we're kind of really kind of quarantined until the fall, let's say, I think what the movie theaters will start doing is saying, hey, you can they'll do like joint revenue. So like when they put out something like Trolls World Tour, I can't even say it. So bad. AMC will take a cut. Regal will take a cut based on something. Just because it's the only way they're going to survive until the fall. Yeah.
I should try to find this article. I believe maybe we shared it with each other earlier, or maybe it was another channel. But there was some theater company, like a small scale theater company, I believe in Europe, right? Yeah. That was like doing like a like special night out where they were like offering to like deliver snacks and something, and I don't know. It's so weird.
They're like everybody's scrambling. Then there's like the art house sort of thing that was like big the first week into quarantine, where it was like, if you want to support your local theater and watch this like new art movie, you can do that, and we're going to send, you know, $2-3 to your local theater of your choice.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that, like they're scrambling, trying to figure something out. I don't think movie theater is going to go away, but I think it's going to quicken the sort of contraction of that entire marketplace. So like, I think it would have taken like 5-6 years to get to where we're going to be in about a year, essentially, is what's going to happen. And so I don't know. I mean, AMC might die. Regal probably will still be around. I think Marcus will still be around, but a lot of them are going to go. Which is too bad. Also, it's in addition to the Trolls World Tour VOD sort of release splash, we had the Birds of Prey getting knocked down to $5.99 for a rental. Now, why is that a big deal? It used to be, you know, at that higher price. But what happened here is that it wasn't selling a lot, apparently. And so they dropped down the price to $5.99. Now, usually you'll get a $5.99 rental. This is rental only, really, about 90 days out. It's that 90-day window where it hits digital. Here, it's like, well, when did this thing open? Like, I guess 2 months ago. So you're at the 60-day mark. So they're trying everything they can to sort of figure it out. What did happen, though, is when they dropped that price down to $5.99, it popped the number 1 on iTunes. So it works. If you price it correctly, people will buy it. It all just really depends on what people think it's actually valued at. Like, what would be Birds of Prey valued to you? Like, what would you pay to see that movie?
Birds of Prey?
Yeah.
I would probably wait for HBO Now or whatever, to be honest.
So essentially nothing.
Yeah. And I may or may not borrow my friend's HBO Now password.
This is even better. Yeah, it's the Wild Wild West. That's essentially what's happening, and all the sort of rules that have been established for the last. And we knew this was coming, but the quarantine is basically speeding everything up.
Right. Here's a question for you, Dan, because I don't really know. Has anybody like starting to track VOD numbers, or is it like just, I know that Birds of Prey is at the top now, right? Yes,
what you basically have with the VOD network is, because it's so disparate and separated onto different sort of distribution channels, it's hard to track. Like, you can look at iTunes, you can look at Fandango, does Fandango Now. So
AMC has that now too.
AMC,
right?
yeah. And so they're all trying to get into that game. There's probably, for let's say Birds of Prey, maybe 300 services it's available on. So different ones out there where you can rent it. So it's super hard to track. And the only sort of people that I know that track it generally is Digital Entertainment Group. And they're kind of the industry group that tracks the numbers at large. But that's something I'll look into, and maybe we can start going through that as well, just to see if there's like just holistically what is the real number 1 VOD movie right now. Another one to look at. So if you look at Digital Entertainment Group, also Media Play News is a really good sort of digital publication that follows home entertainment, and they sometimes have lists in there about what's doing well in rental and stuff like that. So. Gotcha. It's hard to track because it's not just box office. It's like 1,000 different services that are offering the same content, but it's something that we can sort of maybe look into and pepper into the show a little bit as we continue into the quarantine life.
Yeah. We'll have to get creative.
Okay, so that's VOD, premium VOD. Let's dive into so a little context here. Deadline every year. This is like my favorite thing that Deadline does. So Deadline's an entertainment website, if you don't know, started a long time ago. They were one of the first, I think, websites to publish early box office reports. So they would like post stuff that they would hear in the industry on like Friday afternoon. And so they've kind of been famous for having the best box office content out there. And what they've done since, I believe, 2015, the last 5 years, is go through and rank what they consider the most profitable films of each year. Now, the profitability of film is sort of like that black box that no one can really figure out. Like, there's books written about Hollywood accounting. If they spend $100 million and it makes $300 million, what's the profit on that? For the most part, people don't know unless you work at the company. And if you work at the accounting department of that company. But Deadline has a lot of good industry insider sources. And so what they do is sort of compile what they think are the most profitable films of each year with those insider sources. So this is probably our best information that we have on whether a film is actually profitable or not. And so what they do every year is they do a countdown, and they finally started the 2019 countdown of the most profitable films of the year. So let's dive into that list. So they did 5 last week. Coming in at number 25 was Hustlers. They have this movie essentially making $47 million in profit. Now, this one cost about $20 million to make. This is STX. This was kind of a little bit of a bet, I would say. You had J-Lo coming in here. They shot it in like 30 days. $20 million doesn't sound like a lot, but they spent about $40 million to market it. And when all is said and done with participation and all that sort of stuff, you're looking at about $50 million in profit, which is pretty good. I mean, I don't know. Chris, have you seen Hustlers? What do you think of this?
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters. One of, I mean, maybe a dozen films that I saw in theaters last year that weren't children's movies. I was underwhelmed by it, to be honest.
Really?
It did seem like it was kind of hyped up. I mean, J-Lo, the acting's phenomenal. I love Constance Wu. I actually think she did a better job than J-Lo, but J-Lo was also solid in it. And it was not boring, to say the least. It was just kind of, it felt a little undercooked. It felt like it very much felt like a movie that was based off of a magazine article, which it was.
Yeah, it was. Very true.
I mean, there's not a ton going on in it to make it really thoughtful, other than a lot of cool stylistic choices, admittedly. But I mean, I think it's second to only Bad Moms from SDX releases.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think anybody was calling Bad Moms a good movie. So like, maybe they're actually trying to consider, putting out quality product rather than just, just schlocky,
just fluff,
D-rated
genre trash.
Exactly. So like, I think it's a good sign for the studio that, I mean, that perhaps last year, if I was doing this show with you, maybe you would have even agreed with me. I think we were waiting for SDX to just go away.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We always think that SDX is on its last leg, but then they have Hustlers, and they also have Upside too.
The Upside. Yeah. That's probably going to be on the list at some point, right?
Yeah, I think so. But kind of amazing. I don't know how they kept this production budget only to $20 million with J-Lo involved. It sounds like, according to the Deadline write-up, normally J-Lo would take a bigger upfront cut. So that would push up the production budget. But what she did here is took a back end. So she took more off the actual box office receipts, which is smart on her part. I think she made about $8 million on this. But that's number 25, Hustlers, with a $47 million net profits for SDX. Number 24 on the Deadline most profitable film of 2019 countdown is Little Women. So this one cost $40 million to make. Domestically, it ended up making 108. Worldwide, it did 206. Deadline has it at $208 million in revenue. Now, one thing to say, when they say revenue, they literally mean movie theater, TV, streaming, cable. They kind of have to plug in all those numbers to get the revenue number. So they have it at $208 million in revenue. Total cost, they have it $152. So $56 million in profit. I think a lot of people thought this thing was going to break out. I knew it was going to break out. It just had that sort of zeitgeisty feel to it, with Gerwig as the director, and just the cast of the most hip, popular actors, young actors right now. And it had a perfect holiday release time, and it kind of felt maybe not a totally 4-quad movie, but pretty darn close. It just, I don't know why men were showing up to it, but I could tell they were going to, just by the trailer, and it was just sort of arty. But a $56 million profit for a movie like this is just wonderful. You saw this one, right?
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I was excited that Greta Gerwig was doing a second movie at all, and the fact that she was adapting one of the, arguably most canonical literary texts in the English language was, I think, a really ballsy thing to do, and she pulled it off big time. I thought it was in my top 10 of the year, and it was really smart that they zeroed in. It's also kind of ballsy to zero in, but smart to be like, Rise of Skywalker's coming out. Okay, we got counter programming, and it's actually counter programming that works, because so often the counter programming method just falls flat on its face. and they just get swallowed up by the other movie. But they knew what they were doing. So good on Sony, because again, they've not had a lot of home runs, especially after the wake of the Spider-Man saga debacle of earlier in 2019.
Loved that drama. A big bet too, because they spent $40 million on this movie, on Little Women.
Right.
I mean, that's not a small budget for something like this.
Yeah.
But it did end up being a big win for Sony at $56 million in profit. Number 23 on the list, Annabelle Comes Home, folks. Another Conjuring Cinematic Universe film. I love that they can print money. I just love it. So this one cost $27 million to make. One day I'll explain. One day I'll sit down. You can get my commentary on every single film.
Yeah.
$27 million to produce this absolute trash film. I mean, it's awful. Opening weekend it did $20 million. It closed out at 74 domestic, but its global was 231. And so Deadline has the revenue at 207, with total costs here being only 143. So a profit of $64 million, which is fantastic. But Deadline put together a little list of the profits of all the Conjuring films, and it's actually the lowest. So The Conjuring did 161 in profit. The Nun, second highest. Oh, just unwatchable. $155 million in profit.
It's
disgusting. It's just disgusting. So The Nun, I think, as from what I recall, The Nun opened insanely high, then fell off the earth because it has a terrible cinema score and it's an awful movie. But worldwide, people just showed up for it. It was huge worldwide. Annabelle Creation was at $108 million in profit. That was incredibly surprising. That was August of that year. No one expected that one to do that well. Kind of a prequel.
That's the second.
The
Annabelle?
second Annabelle, and it's a prequel. So Annabelle's technically, I believe, a prequel to The Conjuring.
Oh, jeez, I don't want to.
And then Annabelle Creation's a prequel to the prequel of Annabelle. And The Conjuring 2 did $98 million in profit. So this is not that far off. It's a formula. It's slick, well done horror. This one. Well, go ahead. What do you think?
The first Annabelle, the first Annabelle made even less profit than either of its sequels.
Correct.
Is that what I'm getting?
Oh, wait, no. So they don't have the original Annabelle on here. Maybe it did. They just have.
So then, how does it spawn sequels that make so much more in profit? That's so bizarre. That's so backwards.
Yeah, and usually don't see that. Well, the first Annabelle 2, remember, was not very highly. It wasn't well received.
Which is why I think so many people, myself included, were so surprised that it spawned 2 sequels.
Well, I think with the Annabelle Creation, that was kind of dumped for like a really low budget. They're like, yeah, we'll do another one, whatever. We'll toss it out in August, kind of to see what happens, and it just blew up. And that one's not even a good movie either. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of the Conjuring Cinematic Universe. I think it's wonderful. Even though the movies are not very good. The Conjuring is top shelf horror. I don't care what anybody says. It's one of the best haunted house movies of the last 20 years, easily. But like these Annabelle, I liked Annabelle, but Annabelle Comes Home is so third rate. But it doesn't matter because horror movies get people to show up. And so they want to get scared. They show up for the first couple of weekends and then they just completely disappear and it like falls off the face of the earth. But enough people showed up here to get $64 million in profit. So we're going to get another Annabelle. Can't wait. What are we on? 24, 23, 22. The most profitable films of 2019, according to Deadline, was Glass. So this one was only shot for $20 million.
Because nothing happens in it.
I can't believe that with the people involved. It makes no sense. But I guess it's Blumhouse. What's this, Blumhouse? Yeah, Blumhouse kind of co-production. So opens to $40 million. I thought that was kind of low than I thought I was going to do. Closed out at only 111. Does 246 worldwide. Deadline has the revenue at 248. And total cost at only $180 million. So this one just gets past Annabelle Comes Home. Glass at $68 million in profits. A complete mess of a movie. The multiplier on this was only 2.8, meaning that it wasn't that well received. And that was even from a depressed opening weekend, which should have been 60 or $70 million easily. But it just did not happen. And so do you think we're going to get another Glass, Glass 3? Is there room for another one?
I feel like this was so poorly received that but I feel like M. Night is just, it takes a lot for him to get knocked down for a while. And like, I mean, if you don't get all the way knocked down after Last Airbender and After Earth, then I mean, he's gonna keep milking it. I'm guessing there's gonna be.
He's got 100
more
lives. Did your students like this one?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the weirdest part is that, as I believe you talked about back when the film came out, was that it was trying to like bring two weird, like, specific generations together, like the small group of people like you and I that like Unbreakable, and the bigger but not quite as fervent group of people that made Split so much money. I think the most interesting detail in D'Alessandro's write-up of it is that whereas Split had a 72% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, Glass had 37%.
Oh God!
And like, I didn't even like Split that much, but it was at least like it was a solid B movie, trashy effort.
Yeah, it was fun.
But like, Glass is just, what the frick? It's so unfocused, and there's, like I said, there's nothing that happens. I mean, some people thought that was profound and genius that he had like such an anticlimactic third act, but I just thought it was lazy. It just felt like so unmemorable. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it did work on me, but it made me angry.
I don't even remember seeing it. I felt like I feel like I've seen Glass, but I couldn't recall any of it. Like something to do with water and a pool. That's my only memory.
Right.
But enough people showed up, so $68 million. I don't think we're gonna get another one in that series, but it wouldn't surprise me at this point, because M. Night will just show up and throw something on screen.
Yeah.
People will buy tickets.
Somebody will give him $2,000 and he'll be like, yeah, I'll figure it out.
Exactly. Okay, so the last one from last week that Deadline put out, they're going to do the rest this week. Maybe they'll do the final this week, or maybe next week, or the week after. Shazam was at number 21 on Deadline's most profitable list here. Shot for $100 million, so higher budget. I could never get a good read on whether this film was doing well or not, but it ended up doing 366 worldwide, 140 here domestically. So only 38% domestic, the rest foreign. I think the foreign take here is what really put it over the top. Deadline has total revenue at $336 million, but cost only at $262. So they have it as a $74 million profit. I don't get this movie. I don't understand its performance still after seeing these numbers. I don't know anybody who's seen it. I don't know anybody who's talking about it. But apparently DCEU has stands and they show up for this stuff. And I think Deadline mentioned we're going to get a second one.
Yep.
I'm just confused by this movie. Are you confused by it?
Yeah, definitely confused by it. I mean, I grew up reading comic books, and Shazam was one of those characters where it was like people like made fun of him, and like he often like was just sidelined as, a combination Superman Flash ripoff. And the fact that they figured out a way to make a lot of money on this is just very confusing. I think it got a lot of buzz, I think largely because of the script is supposed to be pretty tight. I'm trying to figure out information about this guy, Henry Gayden, but I also know that it was punched up, and I think it was one of those scripts that got punched up by like multiple like notable comedians, and it's kind of on par. Like, I think the thing that DCEU, they don't do a lot of smart things, but I think the smart thing they did is that they were trying to look for their version of Ant-Man, which is 100%. Kind of what Deadline mentions in there. But even better than that, they're trying to go for like a specifically family-friendly Ant-Man, because like I know people who's 8, 9, 10-year-olds where like could go see Shazam no problem. Like there's nothing questionable or overly suspenseful or violent in it. But the Marvel Universe movies are pretty intense for kids. So dark. I think that was kind of smart on their part to go the comedy route, but also kind of soften it to make it so family friendly.
$74 million in profit for Shazam.
So weird.
And we'll probably get a second one in a couple of years. But that's it so far on the deadline, most profitable movies of 2019. Let's hop into the time machine and let's head back to April 2017, when I was actually started this podcast, I think like 6 months before. So this would have been the weekend of April 12th through the 14th. We'll just walk through the top 5 and see what happened back then, 3 years ago. So number 1 was Fate of the Furious this weekend with $98 million on its opening weekend. This movie is terrible. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. But people just love it. And this is definitely an international film. So Fate of the Furious shot for $250 million, which sounds insanely high, but I think it was actually higher than that. Ends up doing $1.2 billion worldwide in 2017. Opening weekend, obviously, here was $98 million. The legs on it weren't great, 2.29x. But this is like my favorite part of the Fate of the Furious series, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, is that it is a foreign product. It is not a domestic product meant for US and Canada consumption. Only 18% of this movie's total box office take worldwide was in the US and Canada. So it is definitely meant for Russia, China, Brazil, all over the world, is where this product really shines. Here in the US, it's kind of an afterthought at this point, which is so bizarre because we both remember this series starting in the US and being just like this total, like, I don't know if I'd call it hip, but it was just very popular when it first came out, and it's gone through these ups and downs. And Fate of the Furious, I mean, I feel like it's unwatchable. You've seen this, right? You've seen it.
No, I've never seen any of them all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces.
This one especially is like where it I mean, it's not even jumping the shark. It's like putting the shark in a wood chipper or something. It's just unbelievable what they're doing with it. And it's just absurd and gaudy and just, it's basically unwatchable, but it's not for us. Right. It's not a product meant for U.S. Consumption. So but $1.2 billion for a movie like this is unbelievable, which is why the series is never going to go away. Nope. The Fate of the Furious movies, Fast and the Furious, is going to be here until we're dead, probably.
Yeah. What I think was interesting about that movie popping off so crazily in 2017 is that its director F. Gary Gray, who's probably most known for Friday, but also had a big surprise. Like the car movies had like a moment in the 2000s, right? And he did the remake of The Italian Job, which was another surprise hit. Like people were thinking like, B-grade action movie, but it made over $100 million in 2003. And then he went on to make Straight Outta Compton, which made 161 domestic, and then Fate of the Furious, and now he's back down, knocked down a few pegs, so to speak, because he made Men in Black International last year.
Oh no, his career's over.
I know.
It's so sad.
It is.
You get like one loss in this biz and you're done, unless you're Ron Howard, then you get 12. Okay, number 2 this weekend, back in April of 2017, The Boss Baby, and its third weekend, does $16 million. This is a movie that I've despised. I was openly hating it on the podcast when I was reviewing these every single weekend. But this thing is a winner. It cost a lot to make, $125 million. Did 4x that worldwide at $527 million worldwide. Adjusted here domestic, $177 million. I don't get this one. You have kids? Were your kids into this?
Yep. Oh my God, they're so into it.
Why did they like it? I don't understand.
Because it's a baby doing Glenn Ross quotes, right? That's what kids are into. I don't know. No, it's so
David Mamet quotes. And also, I thought it was so strange that like it came so made before Trump was president, right? But it comes out, that spring,
good point. Yeah.
A few months after he was inaugurated. And it just felt weird. It felt super weird and surreal. And it just, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's based on a best-selling children's book, and the children's book is, minorly cute, but that's the problem with a lot of these kids movies, especially DreamWorks Animation. And I know I was just giving them credit earlier for how they've been handling this Trolls thing, but also the Trolls movies are ugly and bad. and the Boss Baby is ugly and bad, and the sequel, which is supposedly coming out next year, is going to be ugly and bad.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it's like I don't know. I feel like maybe one of the executives has like the worst children in the world, and they run these ideas by them, and they're like, "Yeah, sounds obnoxious. I love that." And then
that's how Monster Trucks got
right. Yeah, that's right.
Greenlit. I love that story. Yeah, definitely sequel coming out next year. Don't see it, but you will. So that was number 2. Number 3 this weekend, back in April 2017, Beauty and the Beast in its 5th weekend is $13.7 million. This movie was a beast. 1.2 billion worldwide. I thought it was super surprising how well it did. I remember like going through the numbers. This is a movie that made me actually angry every week. Like Boss Baby was like, oh, whatever, it's stupid. But this one, because I knew that it wasn't good. It wasn't good, and I knew the ramifications and the repercussions of this doing well was that we're going to get every single Disney animated film a live action remake of it, and of course that's what's happening. So this thing did, opened up at $174 million opening weekend, cost $160, did 8 times that its worldwide budget. One of the most profitable films of that year. In fact, I'm looking at my old Deadline data from that year. They did the countdown. And let's see what it did in profit. Deadline had it at $414 million in pure profit. So that is not bad for a movie. I have nothing else to say about this. Do you have anything to say about Beauty and the Beast?
Well, it's the reason we have the glut of live action remakes from Disney, right?
Yeah.
Like we had Cinderella before that, but that wasn't hugely profitable. But this one just sealed the deal and was just. Do they put all their cards on the table after that, right?
It's not good, right? It's not
good.
No,
I mean, I fell asleep to it, so I don't know.
You've never seen it.
But I love that. I love that it comes from Bill Condon, who has also had just like a batshit crazy career, because he started out with Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh in 1995.
Oh my god! Shit, no way, really?
No, and then he went on to screenwrite Chicago and then direct Kinsey and Dreamgirls, and then he's like, okay, he's going to be an Oscar boy. But then he went to make both Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2 from this Twilight Saga.
Oh, that was his in.
And then took a break and did The Fifth Estate with Benedict Cumberbatch as fucking Julian Assange.
Oh, yeah. The movie's terrible.
And then last year he had one of the biggest flops of the year, I think, with The Good Liar, Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen.
Oh yeah, I covered that on the cast.
Yeah,
I didn't know what to say about it because like there was no reviews and nobody saw it. So
exactly.
It's just sort of like, I guess this happened.
I don't know. This man's insane. I don't know what he's done with his life.
He's now a multimillionaire because of Beauty and the Beast. Okay, so that was number 3 this weekend, 2017. Number 4 was Smurfs: The Lost Village. This one pulled in $6.7 million back in 2017. It closed out domestically, adjusted at $45 million, worldwide $197 unadjusted. So let's see, 3x production budget, cost $60 million to make. Big international film, only 23% was domestic. I don't remember this film. I don't remember talking about it on the podcast. Did your children see it? That's the big question.
Oh yeah, we saw it.
And it's not good, right?
I mean, no, it's not. But
yeah, I didn't think so.
I mean, I also have a very skewed view because I've seen so much of this garbage. So I think I went in thinking that I was going to hate myself afterwards, and I pleasantly just forgot about it. And there's like, I will say this: I did not expect to go see a Smurfs movie and come out like having feminist thoughts, but Smurfette is the hero of the movie, and it's definitely better than that horrible live action Neil Patrick Harris version that came out in 2011.
I was just looking at the Smurfs franchise now. Now I'm so confused because there's Smurfs in 2011, Smurfs 2 in 2013. Were those both live action?
Yep, those were live action Neil Patrick Harris, and then they went back to the drawing board and did all animated Smurfs: The Lost Village. And I feel like I have too much knowledge of the Smurfs franchise.
And it didn't work. The Smurfs in 2011 did $563 million worldwide. Smurfs 2 did $348 in 2013. This one bombed. well, not really bomb, but $200 million worldwide compared to the other ones. Not all that great. Okay, so that was number 4. Number 5, let's close out April of 2017 this weekend. Going in Style, $6.2 million in its second weekend. This is the Zach Braff movie that I actually really like. I think it might be his best movie, actually. It's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful film. So this thing was shot for $24 million. You know who Zach Braff is. Everybody does, right? I hope you do. If you're young, you probably don't, but that's your fault. So 3.7x multiple its opening weekend. Did 3.3x its production budget worldwide, $78 million worldwide. I think that was profitable for the most part. It seems like it. If I did the calculations in my head right, probably made a little bit of money. Have you seen Going in Style, Chris?
No, I have not. I saw Garden State with you in 2004, and I said never again, Zach Braff.
Oh man, that was one of the most disappointing experiences of my entire life, and I'm not joking. Because like we had built up that movie the entire summer. This is summer 2004, and in August the movie came out. We watched the trailer like literally 600 times throughout the summer, just like hyping ourselves up. And then we see the movie, and the movie I rewatched it like 2 months ago. It's not good, but like it was so not good back then that I think it just completely soiled our perspective of Zach Braff and his apparently non-genius filmmaking. But Going in Style, I feel like Going in Style works because he's been knocked down a peg so many times now that he's sort of like settled into himself as an older dude and like can just sit down and like direct a movie from someone else's script and just kind of make it work. And I don't know. I thought this was really well done.
Is it like a comedy drama kind of thing?
More of a comedy. Like there's very little drama to it. It's very playful, but not zany like Scrubs. It's just
for some reason I keep getting it confused with Last Flag Flying.
Wait, which one's that?
Like Richard Linklater, Steve Carell.
Oh god, it looks terrible.
Yeah,
it looks so bad. Like who wants to see that?
But it's like three aging guys. And that one is their army veterans, and this one's their former bank robbers. Is that right?
No. They're old dudes who lost their pension, and then they decided to rob a bank. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not. There's like no drama. It's like very Zach Braff lighthearted.
Did you ever see Wish I Was Here?
I kind of blocked out that memory, but I've seen it twice.
You've seen it twice? I never saw it.
It's not great. But I like Zach Braff. I like him as a director.
As an auteur.
I just like his. I like that he like puts himself out there and goes for it, and it never works. But it's just like I like I don't know. His best movie's Going in Style. That's all that matters. Okay, so let's hop in the time machine one last time here and close out the show. Let's do 2012. This would be a weekend of April 13th ish. So number 1 back
this
in
weekend's
2012.
not much better than the last one.
Yeah, right. It's terrible. The Hunger Games, $21 million in its 4th weekend. I remember seeing this maybe the first or second week it came out. It's not a great movie. $80 million production budget. This thing closed out at 677 worldwide. That's of course why we got all the follow-up movies. And I can't even name you half of the follow-up movies, but I have to look it up. There's the Mockingjay ones. They all did pretty well. So this did 677 worldwide. Catching Fire did 864 worldwide in 2013. And then the two split up final movies. One did 766 and the other did 650. So these things, they were very highly successful. Lionsgate, this is really their sort of jewel in their crown for a while. And then they reverted back to their normal genre trash ways. But this is kind of a good run of films that they had. I don't know. And it's kind of it's a period in time with the YA novel becoming the huge movie that we're not going to see again for a long time, but it was just kind of the moment. I don't know. Any thoughts on Hunger Games?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I think of all the adaptations of popular novels that we've had throughout the years, it was actually, it's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. It's like they did what they were trying to do in the novel in movie form. So like they didn't stray too far from the source material, and they didn't necessarily do it beat for beat. So I mean, they did it as a business measure, it seems like, and they knew that everybody that was going to that movie the first couple weekends were the ones that devoured the books, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't disappoint that audience so that the sequels could pan out, and they did, like gangbusters. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, and I think it's also weird that it was Lionsgate that managed to do all this. It was weird.
Yeah, Lionsgate's not really known for being kind of a tentpole blockbuster studio.
Yeah. But they had 2 in the top 5.
Mid-tier.
When's last? I mean, this might be the only time I can think of where Lionsgate had 2 in the top 5.
That's pretty rare. Although the third movie we'll talk about was kind of a shit show.
Yeah.
Number 2 this weekend, surprisingly, that beat out Cabin in the Woods, is The Three Stooges from 20th Century Fox, which I don't remember this movie coming out. Like, I looked at everything on it. I don't remember it. I'm convinced that it didn't come out. Has anybody actually seen this film? If you've seen this film, message us on YouTube or Twitter, because I don't think that it's real. I think it's completely made up. This thing
Larry David is in it? What the hell?
Yeah. $17 million opening weekend here in April 2012. It closed out at 44 domestically. Worldwide did 54. Cost $30 million to make. Didn't even do 2 times that worldwide budget. That equals basically a loss for 20th Century Fox on this film. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. The Three Stooges had their time a long time ago. It is no more. Why would you do this movie in any way? Chris, would you do this movie if you were a studio head?
Oh, God, no. But the Farrelly brothers were probably... I mean, I feel like this was probably like a passion project for them. And they were like...
It must have been.
Yeah. And... I mean, 20th Century Fox. I'd be just really interesting. What studio did Green Book? Because I wonder if
I don't know. I don't think it was Fox, was it? I thought it was like I can't remember. But I don't know. They were kind of in between stuff too. I felt like they weren't really in their. What did he do after this? He did like Dumb and Dumber 2. Right. Like not much, and then he hits the jackpot with Green Book. So
it was Universal. It was Green Book. So like.
Gotcha.
20th Century Fox was probably like, no thanks again, Farrelly Brothers. We've given you lots of chances since There's Something About Mary. But yeah, Dumb and Dumber 2, movie 43, which so many did. But but other than that, it was just the Three Stooges and then Green Book. And he did Hall Pass right before the Three Stooges.
Hall Pass? Wasn't that one with Owen Wilson?
Yeah, and Jason Sudeikis.
Unwatchable. Okay, so Three Stooges never happened unless you can prove otherwise. Number 3 was Cabin in the Woods, which is kind of an infamous horror film at this point. Did $14 million on its opening weekend here from Lionsgate, as we mentioned. This is a strange film because I think it's a very interesting horror film. I don't love it necessarily, but I think for younger people who are getting into the genre, it was like kind of like this moment in the horror genre where it was so self-aware that like it was just kind of super fun. And it kind of, to me, was like the end point of the post-Scream era of horror, because the year after this we get The Conjuring, and horror takes a very different direction from The Conjuring to much more sincere and very arty. It follows The Witch. Cabin in the Woods to me really represents sort of the end point of the Scream ironic jokey era of horror. What's interesting about this too, if I'm remembering right, this thing was shot in 2009 and was shelved for a year and some, and I can't remember why. Lionsgate picked up the distribution rights in 2011. It premiered at South by Southwest in 2012 that March, and then opened up a month later. But this thing was, I think, in the can and done at least a year before this. I think they shuffled it around. They didn't know what to do with it. So it ended up doing $70 million worldwide, $48 million adjusted domestically, which, you know, for a movie that cost $30 million to make, this is not a low budget horror film. So kind of a mixed bag. I think financially, not a huge success, but I think culturally, it's a pretty big film. I mean, do you feel that way about this one?
Yeah,
is this something?
Now that you say that, we can draw a pretty distinct through line from Scream in '96 to Cabin in the Woods in 12, and you could look before '96 and after 12, and there's not much in this kind of comedy horror vein, right? It's definitely the end of an era. And Drew Goddard, who wrote and directed it, co-wrote with Joss Whedon infamously, of course, was also the guy who wrote Cloverfield and executive produced 10 Cloverfield Lane. But then he also got an Oscar nomination for writing the adaptation of The Martian, and then had one of the worst flops of 2018, Bad Times at the El Royale.
Well, which is kind of a fun movie. I don't know why people didn't show up for that movie.
I didn't. I keep flipping past it on HBO Now, and now that I realize that it's the guy who did Cabin in the Woods, it kind of makes me want to watch it.
It's worth watching. It's totally bizarre. It's almost like a Richard Kelly the Box situation.
All right, I gotta see it.
Where it's just sort of like, what the hell's happening? But yeah, Cabin in the Woods, financially not a huge deal, but I think culturally definitely a milestone film.
Yeah.
But
it's also so weird that they put out in April.
Yeah, what are they thinking? This is such an October 2011 film. Just put it out in October. It's not rocket science. People would show up. Although I will say this, I hate the ending of that movie. That's all I have to say about that. I hate the ending. It's much too ironic for my taste. But I think that, but essentially it was so ironic that there was nowhere else to go with it. With the whole making fun of horror and the rules of horror. There weren't any rules anymore because it was all ironic at that point.
Yeah.
Enough about that.
October 2011 had Paranormal Activity 3. I wonder if they just didn't want to touch that. But still, I feel like
sad.
I don't know.
Just sad. It could have been a huge film. Should have easily made $100 million domestically.
All right.
Okay. Let's keep the train rolling and wrap it up here. Number 4 was Titanic 3D. I don't remember that happening.
Me neither.
I vaguely remember there was a 3D. If this is past, remember 3D was huge.
Yeah.
From Avatar 2009 2010, but it faded very quickly. By the time you get to 2012, it was not a big deal. But Titanic 3D did $11 million this weekend. It's listed as the 748th weekend of release for Titanic.
So weird.
Yeah, I guess they count it as the original release, which I think is stupid because it's 3D. It's a different movie. I don't know. I don't really want to talk about Titanic. Do you? I don't.
Well, I'm looking up the resurgence of 3D, and it makes sense that James Cameron kind of spearheaded it, right, with Ghosts of the Abyss and Aliens of the Deep in 03 and 05, which were nonfiction films, and then it kind of crossed over into so many of the other movies of the early and mid 2000s, especially children's movies and horror movies, right, doing the 3D thing.
And
then
was it My Bloody Valentine 3D or something?
Yes,
yeah, God,
that was I felt like that was one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
And then they did Final Destination in 3D, Christmas Carol, and Avatar.
What year
obviously.
is that though? What year is that? Is that
the Final Destination is 2009, and so it did die out around 2010.
Man, it was kind
of was kind of the nadir of it, though. I feel like, I don't know. I still feel like I saw the 3D boxes where you dispose of your glasses.
It's still around. It's definitely still around, but it was like everything was in 3D. And I remember in 2010, it was basically I went to go see Up in San Francisco, and it was just of course we're seeing it in 3D.
That's so dumb.
And I was like, what? No, it's terrible. 3D is not good. You can't see anything on the screen. In any event, so that's Titanic 3D was number 4. Number 5, this is a great way to close out the show, folks.
Is it?
Oh, it's the best. It might be the only way to close out the show. American Reunion, which I had to look up and remind myself actually came out, just like Three Stooges. So American Reunion was, I believe, the 4th film in the American Pie series that was theatrically released, that is. There's a lot more films in the series that were straight to VOD. So American Reunion cost $50 million to make. Worldwide box office for American Reunion, $236 million. Who and why?
That's so weird.
Domestically, it does $56 million. So I'm surprised why we didn't get another one, because this actually did well enough where you might see a sequel.
Right.
So American Pie came out in 1999. It's like a touchstone film, I think, for millennials. Do you remember seeing it opening weekends? Were you there with me, maybe?
I think I was. I don't know. I blocked a lot
West
of it
Town.
out, man. And it was packed at the Ultra Screen.
Ultra
right?
Screen, yeah. This is the same summer as Blair Witch Project.
Okay.
And just a huge film, does 234 unadjusted worldwide. American Pie 2 does 286 in 2001, right afterwards. And then I thought by 2003, American Wedding, I was like, oh, this thing's done.
Yeah, dead in the barrel. Nope.
Yeah. $104 million domestically, 126 worldwide. Yeah, this thing's over. But for some reason,
nobody asked for it. Nobody.
9 years later, with a cast of people that nobody remembers anymore. Are any of them famous?
I mean, I feel like Jason Biggs is only still known because he's the boyfriend on
Orange is the New Black. Yeah. I think that's the only thing he's done.
John Cho, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was in that. But yeah, just kind of a total, and also the type of film. Do we have these sort of Porky's films anymore?
God, thankfully, I think they finally died.
I think they're dead.
But I mean, looking at the spin-off series, the direct to
I know video, I was looking at those.
There's supposed to be one that comes out this year called American Pie Presents Girls Rules. So the first post Me Too American Pie movie. Jesus Christ.
Well, it's really a American Legacy is what this film is.
Why is that not the name of another American Legacy?
Yeah, American Pie. It's just, it is kind of funny though, because you just don't see stuff like this at all anymore. And this is only 8 years ago.
Right.
And like the culture has changed so dramatically that people are not looking for another Porky series to laugh at with their friends in high school. I don't know what people in high school laugh at anymore, but it's not a dude sticking his dick into an apple pie.
No, but it's Big Mouth on Netflix. I'll tell you that as a high school teacher.
Oh yeah, there you go. Netflix streaming takes over again. All right, that's it for the Time Machine 2012. Any sort of larger thoughts about our time machine journey this time? Anything come to mind?
It does. I think Cabin in the Woods is a good touchstone for this whole conversation that we've kind of had over the course of these special episodes about, there being so much trash out there. And it's like, I mean, yeah, the movies that are actually good are just overall generally not the movies that make money. It feels like there's still so many people that argue this, and it's weird that we try to like analyze this and figure this out. But I mean, obviously we take joy in talking about bad movies, which we discussed the first joint Time Machine episode. But I mean, we also take pleasure in talking about good ones too. And, those just are not the ones that make money, unfortunately.
I blame MCU. I blame comic book movies.
But it's been like this forever, since before that.
It has. But there was always, before comic book movies, there was always people like us who would attack Michael Bay films, for instance, and be like, this is just trash. This is lowest common denominator, like filler. And of course, people are going to eat it up, whatever, blah, blah. It's just popular mass media. But with comic book movies, because they were so popular and the fans were so basically zealots that like, and what blows my mind, it's like the poptimism thing in music. And film critics, they see them as sort of bulletproof movies to criticize.
Right.
And if they do try and criticize them, there was some major film writer that did, I don't know what it was, you get ripped to shreds. And then all of a sudden he doesn't get clicks anymore. And he doesn't get access. It's almost like a political reporter. And it's sort of, I don't know, it's changed a lot where I don't know. I mean, I'll put it this way. Do you think people are as critical of an MCU film as they were of a huge action film in the 90s? The answer is no.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I do think there's perhaps more gradations now because so much of our generation have now become the ones that have grown up, and that's one that, love them or hate them, that is one of the smartest things that the MCU did, is that they made sure to make them fun and funny in addition to like, balls to the wall action movies. And so like it was a lot easier for our generation to make fun of Michael Bay and Jerry Bruckheimer because it felt like they were so oblivious to the ridiculousness that they were putting on screen. But the MCU, that's perhaps one of the reasons they are bulletproof, because it's like they're hiring smart people to produce this product, and these smart people lived through those same decades that we did. And it's an unfortunate but natural step in the evolution of blockbuster movie making, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what comes out of the quarantine.
Yes.
In any event, folks, thanks for listening. This has been the Wild Line Podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm Chris.